Hey everybody, this is Jeremy. Just want to give you a quick heads up that Duckfeed has a brand new podcast. It's called Everything to Guppy. You can find it at everythingtoguppy.cat. It's a podcast where Gary Butterfield and Will Hughes talk about every single item, trinket, and boss in the Binding of Isaac video game, something that you know you're going to love. Check out that and more podcast at Duckfeed.tv.
It seems I have quite an audience. Thank you all. I'm grateful to have the chance to say goodbye. Morph, it's nice to see you home. In facing your fears, you have proven yourself truly an X-Man. Gambit, how often must the scoundrel prove himself a hero before he believes it himself?
Did somebody step on a duck?
I'm Jeremy Greer.
And I'm Gary Butterfield.
And this is Days of Future Cast, the podcast where Gary and I talk about X-Men, the animated series. And it's a sad/happy day, Gary. This is the last two episodes we're ever going to cover.
It's a graduation day.
It's a graduation day, if you will. How do you feel coming to the end of this?
Pretty good. It would be a sad thing if the show ended properly, but it almost does, which I think is kind of sweet. I think that if the show did one of its best episodes at the end and there wasn't anything embarrassing about the last episode, it wouldn't be very on brand, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So it's got a little bit of that goofiness, which I appreciate. And, I'll miss talking about it, but I'm glad that we got done, what we did.
It's,
you always look back on these and always exist.
Yeah. It's something interesting where you've watched 75 episodes of this and you've taken it all in. And not only that, not only did you chill on your couch and binge 75 episodes on Netflix one day, you actually took the time to talk about it and tear it apart and think about it. And all of this other stuff that goes along with podcasting about it. And I can't help but after all of this, have even more of an attachment than I did previously. And I'm happy that these two episodes are good, weird. And I feel like the last episode, Graduation Day, is, if not legitimately good, it has some good writing at the end that made me sad. So I think that's what a series finale should do, right?
Me too. I messed it up a little bit at the end. It's a little bit sad.
Yeah.
It's it's not perfect, but it's a little bit sad. This has reinvigorated my X love in a way that is pretty intense. I've been going through on Marvel Unlimited and reading old X-Men crossovers. I reread the Phalanx Covenant.
Nice.
After we did that episode, as I threatened. And I'm rereading the Extinction Agenda now, which is a bad old crossover I've always had some affection for. I'm just kind of going through it. It's a weird thing. It's the show is kind of part of being trapped in this nostalgia cycle. I feel I should read new X-Men stuff. And it's I just want to keep, it's a comforting X-womb that I am in.
That's honestly the worst kind of womb I can think of. It just doesn't sound like a good womb.
It was once a womb, and now it's a tomb.
And now Xavier lives there. So good job.
Yes. It is. It feels good, and there's something. This comes up mostly on other shows on Watch Out for Fireballs and Bonfireside Chat, but there's something about podcasting about something that files it away in my brain. In a way that makes it feel very definitive.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean I'll never experience it again, but it's I had the chance, like you said, the chance to actually deconstruct it. So there's something about doing this kind of episode by episode, moment by moment coverage that makes something feel fully explored. It's you're chewing your food really well before swallowing it. Almost.
I can see that. Yeah. Something to, I get real caught up in the kind of the binge culture, like I mentioned. So sometimes you experience things without necessarily really going through and thinking about them. And actually forcing myself to sit down, to slow down, to watch them at a pace, not just to go to watch 20 episodes all in one rush or one day or whatever. It makes it more real to your brain. I think it gives you a chance to absorb it a little bit more. I don't know why I want to absorb this cartoon series from the 1990s, but here we are. I'm glad that we're here.
There's recently some kind of study or something. There was recently some news stuff about how if you want to remember a TV show, don't binge it.
Yeah.
Because if you asked me, I remember individual episodes of Deadwood and The Wire because I was getting those on Netflix disc. So I'd have 2 episodes per disc, and then it would be at least 3 or 4 days before the next one.
Wow.
If you asked me
how I know you're
what
old.
happened, yeah, man, extremely old. If you asked me what happened in episode 3 of Stranger Things, I have no fucking clue.
Oh yeah,
I know the general arc of that whole season, and that's it. Or Westworld, right? Like everything's coming back to Westworld now since the series is going to restart. So I just think back to Westworld, and it's like I remember the high points of that story. I remember thinking at the end, like, oh, there's a lot of filler. And I, sat down and kind of binged a lot of it, not all of it, but I got caught up at a certain point. And it just, that stuff just blurs together as almost nothing. I just remember those high points. It's a weird way you can kind of not be that good and still get a lot of attention if your high points are good.
Sure. Yeah. It works out. It's interesting watching the way that we watch media sometimes. It just dramatically can affect the way you think about it. I think about the recent season of Twin Peaks, and I went into it we didn't watch season 1 and 2 or anything. I kind of thought I was going to, but who has the fucking time, especially at season 2?
Right.
And so I just was like, okay, I'm just gonna experience it. I'm not gonna go online. I'm not gonna read a bunch of theories. I just want to watch it and deal with it on my own. And then at some point, I'm gonna go through and do a huge Twin Peaks binge. But it's not gonna be a binge. It's gonna be me listening to watching an episode, and then listening to a podcast about it, talking to someone about it, and then going to the next episode. That's the way that I want to experience it. That's the way I want to remember it, but I wanted to experience it the first time with no obligation or pressure whatsoever. So
it's a really good way to do it. Something that it comes up with all media too. It's not just shows, but games and everything too. Being very considered in the pacing that you approach something with is really huge. Certain games that we'll do for the show, I've gotten better at managing the schedule, but earlier on with Watch Out for Fireballs, or I'd end up being kind of up to the wire. I would be playing something on the deadline, and there are episodes where I finished the game an hour or 2 before we recorded.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that. I like to think that I am a good enough critic to where that didn't actually affect my summations, but I don't know that that's true. And I also know that even if it didn't affect my kind of objective thinking of it, it definitely affected my experience. So now it's there's certain games where, for example, Witcher 3, when we were doing that, I started playing, we covered that in December. I started playing that in September because I knew I wanted to take my time with it. I don't want to rush through this. I'm going to pace this to be remembered and luxuriated in and savored,
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that we're probably moving towards a cultural shift towards being more active in the pace in which we consume media. And you can tell that we're coming on that because binging is something that's being used for marketing now, where Netflix will have commercials where it's what are you going to do this weekend? How about a binge? And it's in no other context is binge considered okay.
I've never seen that
or
before.
positive.
That's horrible. I hate that.
It's not exactly these words, but I've seen what will you binge tonight? I've seen things like that. I've seen that used, and I started dating around again. It shows up in profiles a lot, where people use it, and it's oh, this is becoming. There's no shame to this anymore, which means there needs to be a backlash and some shame to it.
Gotcha.
This. Yeah. Let's go the other direction and do. It's the same thing with the slow food movement. There needs to be a counter wave to this, and I think that the kind of active and slow paced media kind of consumption will be really good. A good move.
Hulu does this really well. When they came out with, they did this with The Handmaid's Tale and that series, The Runaways, which we should spend a little bit of time talking about The Runaways at some point, since we're totally not talking about the X-Men anyway.
There's a mutant on the team,
but there is.
The comics, at least.
They released the first 3 episodes to kind of get you hooked, and then after that it was weekly, so you had 1 episode per week, which for my schedule, I don't really have the kind of schedule where I'm going to sit down and watch 12 hours of a TV show the weekend it comes out. That's just people that finish Stranger Things the weekend that it comes out. Just I'm how? What did you do? I just don't have that. I have other stuff that I want to accomplish. Not saying I'm big shit on Turd Mountain or anything. I don't all I want to accomplish is I don't know jerking off to Jello or something. It's nothing crazy or anything. But sorry Cliff. I don't know why I said Cliff Huxtable and not what's his name. Anyway, who cares?
Bill Cosby. I assumed you were talking to Cliff that you know, and I assumed that was an inside joke about him jerking off onto Jello.
I was literally thinking about Cliff Huxtable, so don't. I don't know why.
Okay.
But anyway, like having that, like, okay, here's 3 episodes. Like that's a Friday, Saturday night. Like I'm hooked, and now like I'll have a week of that to kind of stew in it and to anticipate the next one has been really fun.
Yeah,
like, that's worked for me.
Oh yeah, man, I love it. Like it's because I can't. That's the ideal model for me because I can't do a TV by appointment, right? Like I've never gotten a TV by appointment. I can't really do streams. Like I don't want to. Hey, you have to be here at 7. To do it. Like I rankle against that. I don't like it. But what I do like is having once a week. So I've been watching, like when Game of Thrones was going on, I loved that because I have it to look forward to. And then now I'm watching The Good Place, on Hulu. And I love that, like, just like, oh, like shit, I have that to watch today. Sometime on Friday, I don't know when, but sometime during that day, I'm going to sit down and watch that show. And that's a really good feeling. It's pacing itself out really, really, really well.
Yeah, I don't want appointment viewing, but that like I have something to look forward to on Friday. That's like automatized like weekly Friday night hangout has been like, oh, there's a new episode of Top Chef and there's a new episode of The Good Place. Let's watch that. Let's make some dinner. Let's hang out, and let's of course party to 3 a.m. like animals because we're those kind of people. But no, but like that's the kind of appointment viewing that I want. It's like having a regular schedule of something, but not necessarily like I want to show up somewhere at 7 a.m. to do something. So
yeah,
The Runaways is good,
down
dude.
to the day rather than. I really want to watch it.
It's it's a reasonably good show. The powers all look really cool without looking like just typical. Like everything in The Gifted kind of comes off as looking a little weird, but this seems to look a little bit not necessarily better, but just more interesting. Like the powers just seem to articulate a little better, and the show is kind of good. Like I'm kind of enjoying it, even though it's a bunch of teens. So
I reread the comics when the show was announced. So I'm prepared to watch it. So yeah, it's been on my list. Like I would like to watch. I love those characters.
Yeah, the casting is spot fucking on for all of them. Like they
they
do a little bit weird stuff where they get into the parents in a lot more detail than they do in the comic books. Like they're a lot more fleshed out because I think the comic books, like it's been a while since I read that, but the comic books they feel like very, very super villainy. Like they feel very schlocky almost in their badness. Where here they feel more human.
Yeah, they don't add any shade to the parents until really late.
Yeah,
in the comics. So I assume they would do it. It'll be interesting to see what they do because without spoiling anything for the audience, does the series end with the big twist from the comics?
They're leading up to that. I'm like 2 episodes behind. They're leading up to that twist, and they've so far have played it very, very well. Like they kind of kept that whole thing close and made it. I think it's going to feel really natural. Like I feel like if there's a certain point where you might suspect something. And but you could easily brush it off. But if you've read the comics,
that's the best way to do a twist.
Yeah, you're like on the edge of. You're like, I know what's about to fucking happen, and I know. So yeah, it's gonna be fun.
I'm just really curious where they go with it too, because it's got renewed, and the Runaways stories after the first 12 issues are not very good. Like
they're not. They're okay, but
they range from fine to bad, and then get bad and worse until it's just like those characters just got shit on. Like really badly. So hopefully the showrunners and the writers are better than the writers, better than Joss Whedon pretty much, who did that terrible time travel arc.
I have the first 3 hardback volumes because I was still buying comics that way back in the day. And that's probably the furthest that I've read. I don't know how many issues in that is. It's probably like 50 something issues. And I was like, yeah, I'm kind of done with this now. Apparently the new version, Kevin Wada, I may be saying his name right, is doing all of the art in it, and he's just got some real crazy cool designs for those characters. So I'm kind of interested in picking that up, but only because of the art. Like I don't know what the story is or anything nowadays, but I just like Kevin Wada a whole lot, and all of his Marvel shit is so fucking dope.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll look cool. I feel like it's weird. Their characters felt like they were created to tell that story. Of the first thing with the parents.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then once they no longer had the parents, it's like there's just not a whole lot to them.
Yeah, they're just superheroes at that point, right? Like there's nothing.
Yeah.
So yeah. Well, let's talk about some X-Men since we rambled all over the place as our custom. We have 2 episodes, both of which are kind of bonkers.
Mm-hmm.
The first one
of which more
Descent.
bonkers than the other one. I think this is very bonkers.
This is fucking insane, is what this is. I am.
Yeah.
I think I messaged you on Slack like when I was watching this today. I was like, "What is happening?" I could barely keep up in my notes just to like write down something that's happening on the screen.
There's a real difference between this one though and the last episode with Sam Guthrie, where this is insane. Like in terms of like just being audacious and weird that they're telling the story. The story makes internal sense a lot more than the last one did.
Mm-hmm.
Like characters are actually acting, in a way that makes sense for them, kinda in here. So I ended up kind of liking this episode, despite the fact that it's very, very bizarre. So the one line thing of this, the origin of Mr. Sinister. Okay, you mean that character that we're not going to see anymore? Okay,
we literally don't see him ever again. Like just like we did with Apocalypse, just like we did with that, military train that we dealt with, Sam Guthrie. Like nothing from this season is ever going to happen again. So it's weird.
Yeah. We don't get the ending of Mr. Sinister. We get the beginning of Mr. Sinister for some reason. And I referenced this before. This episode, for kids, you're just watching a cartoon who just like the X-Men, who don't know what this is going to be. This just starts off in 1800 with no X-Men. Like this is no framing device. It's not like Xavier looking down at that picture of the X-Men and thinking, it's not like Sinister recounting this. It's just we're in London times.
Yeah, there's no framing device. Like that's the thing.
Yeah.
That's the thing that kills me. Is this isn't like it doesn't start with Professor Xavier saying, "Oh, we've captured Sinister," and like Wolverine being like, "Well, I'm real angry. We should kill him," and him saying like, "Oh, well, let me tell you about the tragic history of
scan his mind,
Mr. Sinister or whatever." Like it's none of that. They literally just open up with like a Jack the Ripper scene. That's what this is.
And also, just so you know, Jack the Ripper's in this. So just in case you were wondering if this was going to be a crossover League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, like it definitely is. So we start off in old-timey London. It's foggy. Big Ben strikes midnight, and a woman is being followed by a suspicious-looking man who we later find out to be Jack the Ripper.
Mm-hmm.
The Jack the Ripper has that facial hair that the Time Imp has. That weird way that whoever drew Van Dykes on this show thought they came out of the sides of your nose as opposed to like a regular mustache.
It's not a great stash. As somebody who's working on his facial hair game right now, it's not a great stash.
It's a very bad stash. And he has glowing eyes, scary glowing eyes. And he's dressed like a supervillain. like he's got a top hat.
I really thought this with the red eyes. I just assumed this was Mr. Sinister up until like the last part of the podcast, the last
Sinister's
part of the
buddy.
episode. Yeah. But this is just Sinister's
Jack
friend,
the fucking Ripper.
Jack the Ripper.
Yeah. So she screams, runs. The cops, like I love the bobbies who are chasing him down, and there's a guy who is at a cart that sells hot coals. And gets knocked. All of these cops run into him all as one part.
It's so funny.
And knock this guy down. It's really good.
I really like this a lot. This next scene is going to be with the the investigator who's trying to figure out who Jack the Ripper is, and then I don't remember if I wrote down his first name.
And that's how we find out it's Jack the Ripper, because he's talking about like the murders in Whitechapel.
Yeah,
so he never says Jack the Ripper, but his name is Jack, and it's kind of like a cool little Easter egg for people who are older, right? Like who are like older viewers who know Whitechapel and know the Whitechapel Killer and shit.
Have I told you about playing the Whitechapel board game? Richard highly recommended it to me because it was a like a kind of a co-op thing, and like me and Autumn are way more into co-op than we are competitive games. So Christmas a few years ago, I bought it. It was me, Autumn's dad, and another friend of ours. I have the most experience with board games out of the group, so I was like, okay, I'll play Jack the Ripper, and you guys can chase me because you guys can all cooperate with each other. And it went terribly. Nobody was having a good time. It was way overcomplicated. This thing took up my entire living room table. Like everybody was like had a few mimosas that morning. Nobody wanted to fuck with this at all. Like it was a bad time. But at one point, the structure of that game is like you do a crime, you kill a chick, and then you have to go back to your hideout, which could be a random like node on this board or something, and and the other players have to try to figure out where you are and where your hideout is, and at some point they catch me, and Autumn's dad looks over and says, "We found his hideout. That's where he does his ripping." and the four of us fell out laughing as hard as we've ever laughed in our lives, just dying laughing, just like completely cracking up at this. And it was one of the funniest things that Autumn's dad has ever said to me. And Autumn's dad has said some funny shit to me in his lifetime. So
Oh, that's beautiful.
That's where he does his ripping. It's just cracks me up.
This is where I make my ribs.
The reason I remember that is because this board behind the investigator is like a perfect match for what the actual board game looks like. So yeah,
there's I have a copy of the Sherlock Holmes cooperative game that deals with Jack the Ripper. But it's very different. It's like only cooperative, like there's no antagonism, and it's pretty much like a choose your own adventure role playing game thing where you just have to put together clues and be Sherlock Holmes. It's super cool.
Mm-hmm.
But it's funny when you talk about like having a couple of mimosas and just not being ready for that shit, because like I've definitely been forced some of my friends through board game stuff where like nobody was feeling it, but it's just this big complicated setup and nonsense, you know? It definitely happens.
Like the afternoon Brian Wade and I spent playing the Dark Souls board game, and like by the end of it, I was like, "Do you just want to like go to a bar? This is boring. Let's go do anything else besides this."
I wish that game had been good.
Yeah. So yeah, this investigator is hanging out with Dr. Xavier.
Dr. Xavier's facial hair is incredible. Like his weird omni beard hair, like spike eyebrows, like everything going on with his steez.
But also
is just pretty amazing.
Also completely bald, but also like mostly bald. Like he's got like a bald mullet thing happening. It's crazy.
He's got the skullet.
He's got the skullet. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, that's it's called a skullet. I learned that from Tony Hawk Pro Skater character creation.
Of course you did. Where else in the world would you hear a skullet from? Of course.
Yeah.
They don't train you for that shit in high school.
Bam Majera taught me this. Xavier is trying to help the Scotland Yard guy, kind of telling it, and he's saying like, "Hey, listen, it's this guy named Essex. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm telling you, it's Essex." And they don't know. They're like, "There's no proof." So we're already in a flashback. This is our second flashback. Is Dr. Xavier explaining how he knows about Essex and things about Essex, essentially.
Yes. And it gets very confusing, and the only way that you can keep the various timelines alive is because in what I'm going to call the present, like in the current timeline, he's got the dope ass facial hair. In the past, he's clean shaven. Like that's the only way that you can tell the difference.
He grows a big castaway beard. It goes back to Essex watching a speech from Charles Darwin,
from the man himself.
So the characters that now exist in the X-Men universe include Charles Darwin and Jack the Ripper. Like, and old like Mr. Sinister is very Dracula.
Oh yeah,
like his collar,
with the collar, the pencil mustache,
little mustache and stuff. Yeah. So we switched to Dracula and young old Xavier watching Darwin. Talk about this, and hey kids, like this is super exciting. You tuned in to watch Wolverine fight some Sentinels, and like
let's debate the finer points of natural selection,
evolution. Yeah, it's pretty incredible.
It's great. They're arguing about like what is natural selection if we consider the soul. I'm like, why?
Yeah.
This is great. Like, I wish they did more of this stuff because it's so crazy.
Oh man, Jeremy, I don't know if you have it playing, but about 3 minutes and 10 seconds into my rip, when Xavier stands up to say, what of the soul, Mr. Darwin, the two guys behind him are sleeping and they just look dead.
They're just out. Yeah, the whole crowd looks very, very bored in this whole thing.
It's real good.
And if they're not bored, they're angry, which is also
Darwin is wearing pajamas. Yeah, that's the other thing too, is Darwin's definitely wearing a pajama. Very, very good. So Essex is real into this though. Everyone's skeptical except for Essex. And Essex comes up and says like, "Hey, I've got some research on mutations. Like, what if mutations were not over the centuries, like you say? What if they were instant? Perhaps you can support me." And Darwin, and this is true to history, is my understanding, is he's just like, "No, it's not. It's not a good time for us. Like these ideas are fine, but like this is not a popular kind of way to think."
And then he signs the book Origin of the Species for for Essex, which is really funny to me that he got the signature. I don't know why it's so funny to me, but I just really like to Mr. Essex, thank you for attending my thing where everybody fell asleep. Love, Charles Darwin.
Just the idea of Mr. Sinister getting an autograph no matter what. Like Mr. Sinister's autograph collection is a very funny thing to me.
He's got Charles Darwin. He's got Dr. Xavier. Yes, Xavier shows up to this and is basically I kind of like this when they do when TV shows do flashback episodes and it's just like, oh, this is obviously like somebody's great granddad or whatever. like we talked about this with, oh no, not this, never mind. But when they do this, it's usually kind of bad. But I like the fact that like this Xavier is kind of a shitty Xavier. Like he's very much not on the side of science, right? He's very much on the side of like establishment thought and thinking about the evolutionary species, where it would have been so easy to like adapt modern day Xavier's, role as a mutant, peace lover or whatever into this old character, where they didn't do that. Like he's actually like, yeah, Darwin, calm it down a little bit. Like we still have to think about God, which is not something you expect from Xavier. So
yeah. It shows like the changing in the thinking, throughout time, as opposed to, I agree. I think that's pretty cool. And this is the thing that changed, it's not Xavier, but like Xavier's ancestral line or what have you, right? Like he used to be more of a person who was against evolution, didn't believe in it. And then he has this crazy experience with Mr. Sinister. And it kind of makes him a believer, is that kind of the implication here.
And then we find out Essex is married to Lord Grey's daughter, Rebecca, which this seems like an egregious, like, shoehorning in of a character that you would recognize. Is this from the comics, by the way? Because I don't ever remember reading this like history of Mr. Sinister from the comics. So
this whole construct with Nathaniel Essex definitely is from the comics. I don't think he's married to Rebecca Grey here. One thing though is that it ends up making, so Mr. Sinister's whole thing is trying to get Jean Grey to have babies, and with Cyclops, but not in a way that they would naturally would as husband and wife. So him being married to one of her ancestors means that, is Jean Grey one of his great descendants?
Well, they don't ever talk about him having kids, right? They just say that he's super sick, and then so I have to assume that no, like maybe he's just fascinated with the genetic line of his wife, maybe, because if it's
they're married, they're related. Yeah. Even if his wife didn't have kids and it's like his sister's kid, like he's maybe Jean Grey is his great niece or something. There's something there though. It's kind of a weird way to put it.
I just picture handing her Weathers originals.
Like I have to see if my niece has babies. It ends up being kind of because I want to be their second uncle twice removed. I don't know what that means. It's very strange though. There is a comic where Cyclops and Jean Grey go back in time and deal with all this shit. That came out in the 90s.
Oh, weird.
So there's like two adventures of Cyclops and Phoenix comics, one of which they go in the future and raise Cable. And that's a terrible slog with a character named Ascani, which is like just like the worst. And then there's one where they go to the 1800s, which is also not very good now that I think about it, but they're both extant.
Going back in time, not always the best thing to do. So Rebecca, Essex's wife, Nathaniel Essex's wife, is sick, and Dr. Xavier has been, contracted to try to fix her, try to heal her, and it's not working very well. And so Essex starts taking things into his own hand and starts taking blood samples from her to take to his lab in an abandoned insane asylum where he takes in like leftover weirdos from the carnival or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, very, very strange.
Very goth, very Dracula.
Very, very gothic. Yeah, he's got a mad scientist lair. And it is explicitly as such. So pretty, I'm down with that, I think.
I'm into it. Yeah.
Yeah. So then they go, God, this is where they go to like the circus. This is where they're recruiting people from circuses.
Yeah, this is his Ocean's 11 montage where they get the gang
together. Gaining a bunch of mutants that we don't care about. But then, he's going through and getting mutants, and he's going to show them off to Darwin. Like he literally gets a red curtain to put in front of them, and then does this little this theater to show off his circus freaks.
His little half cape thing that he's wearing is just some of the best fashion that we've seen in the show so far. With his Tombstone haircut, like that character from Spider-Man, that's exactly Tombstone's haircut.
Yep.
So Essex is presenting these people as like the next evolution in humanity, and basically all he shows them is like an electroscope, and then like this dude like moves some stuff, like everyone's like, okay, and then
it's the shitty X-Men. Like they show off like their real bad little power that the 1800s X-Men have.
Yeah, they show off Jubilee before she gets all powerful.
The League of Extraordinary Jubilee is like that he's trying to put together.
He keeps looking at the crowd too, right? Like every time he does an experiment, he's like looking at like, oh man, wasn't that great? And nobody is impressed at all. It's really fantastic. To be
fair, like it's real weird though, because I'm kind of on Sinister's side. Like you'd think like, okay, like he's doing a trick. And if Sinister's like, no, like any place, anywhere, Like, you bring the water, I'll make my guy boil it. Like, you give, let's go to controlled conditions. Like, he's just doing it the wrong way. Like, these are actually mutants. This is like if, I think James Randi has that thing where he offers $1 million if you can do something supernatural.
Mm-hmm.
Under controlled conditions. Like, this guy can do supernatural things under controlled conditions. He only presents it under really contrived, suspicious conditions.
Yeah, if you want to prove to me that your people can do something, like, don't do it above a table. Like, because that's gonna be, like, you know what I'm saying?
I've seen a magic show. You're dressed like a magician.
What are you gonna do next? Come out with a Ouija board and a candle's gonna come on and off? I mean, come on. I've seen this stuff before, man.
The great Nan Nathaniel, like, is going to do another magic trick. Like, I've seen this before. I've seen The Prestige.
And he's really pissed off. Like, everybody gets up in jets, and he's like, "But wait, like, with this research, like, we could control our destiny as man. Like, we could control hereditary diseases. We don't have to be like, we could control our bodies, and we could become as gods." And everybody in the room is like, "I got to get the fuck out of here. This dude is a heretic. We got to leave."
And to do just to have wipe watch. In the season, there's a little weird, like, did you notice the water wipe?
Yes.
It looks like somebody dropped, like, water into a scrying pool.
If we haven't, I know we've mentioned it a couple of times. This season has the most bizarre and worst wipes of all time. Yeah,
it's extremely bad wipes. So we go back to the future, we go back to the present or what have you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Xavier and this cop go and find a gross foot. Like, they find a mutated.
I wish you were lying. I wish you were making that up. But they zoom in on the foot and they, like, do a trick of the camera so that it focuses on the foot and blurs out everything behind it. It's hideous. It's a bad foot, Gary. I don't want this foot in my life anymore.
It's extremely bad foot. And if you kids, if you tuned in to watch Wolverine do some cool shit, hopefully you like Professor Xavier's grandpa looking at a foot. That's what you're gonna get.
It's so bad. Oh man, this is not good. I can't believe there's just a huge foot. Like, that's
yeah. This is. It's. I mean, it's so bad, but also I think this is kind of cool, right? Like, this is the X-Men. I think if the X-Men are going to do nerd stories where, like, it's about deduction and detectives and stuff, I think this is pretty cool.
Yeah. Like,
I've always liked this setting. Like, I like 1800s London science.
And it's holding together from a plot standpoint, right? Like, that's the key. It's like all of this stuff makes sense for the most part.
Yeah, because it's largely directly from the comics. Like, they just had a rubric from a pretty simple, like, they were adapting a miniseries, not something that had tendrils of continuity, spiraling in years in every direction.
And we get our second montage of the episode. There's gonna be a lot of montages, by the way. This time, after his failure to present, like, these mutants properly or whatever, he gets kicked out of the Royal Academy. And
you say montage, you mean flashback?
Well, I mean, just like there is a montage of him, like, experimenting on himself. Is what I was going after. Yeah. So, like,
but this is in the past. So, like, this is Xavier explaining more about Essex.
Yeah.
To the cop.
And we see him, like, shocking his own head for some reason and, like, writing down a bunch of papers. Basically, he's been outcast and he becomes a recluse whose only goal is to, like, further his own experiments.
Yes. Driven mad because of his wife.
Mm-hmm.
And he's successful. It cuts over to Xavier using one of those old-timey medicine horns to try to treat the wife, and he can't do it. So this montage is pretty effective, though. It's showing him using dark science to try to do things when regular science is failing.
Yeah, which is legit.
Yeah,
this is. I mean, this is what you would expect from, because we don't even really necessarily know that this is Sinister yet, right? Like there's if you're not like paying attention, like if you're that kid that just woke up on Saturday morning, you don't really know that this is Sinister just yet.
You would think so, except for the fact that Xavier says it seems quite sinister, like no less than 40 times.
He keeps dropping the Sinister bomb, doesn't he? Okay, my bad.
He says it nonstop. Like it's the only adjective in the cartoon. Like they show a part where they're eating sandwiches and he goes, Xavier, how was your sandwich? He goes, sinister. Like everything is sinister.
But this is the scene where he decides to take his own. Well, first we find out that he is that Rebecca has been healed, and that he's been giving her these regular treatments. And Xavier and Lord Grey are both like, "What the fuck? That's not cool." And then we see Essex like drink some weird potion and then turn into Mr. Sinister. Right, like his skin goes that.
The chronology is a little bit. Sorry to cut you off. Like the chronology is a little bit different than that. Like he. she keeps getting worse, actually. Like, the doctor can't heal her, and then he does the breakthrough on himself, and then he makes her better.
Oh, I skipped ahead a little bit. My bad. Okay.
Yeah. So, because, I mean, the part that's, important, and that's what Xavier is, like, can't argue with his results, right? Mm-hmm. And she seems fine. And God, the fact that this is implied to be one of Jean Grey's ancestors, like, is this why Jean Grey's a mutant?
Sure.
This is in her ancestral line, like, pretty weird. But, like, Xavier doesn't really have a real good leg to stand on here. I feel like Sinister is no good. He's doing things against God or what have you, but he also fixes her.
Well, and also, the thing that they don't know is that he's using all of these people that he's, collecting from carnivals to torture them and to also, not torture them, but to abuse them for his scientific purposes. Yeah. So that's really the bad thing, that they don't know yet. So they can't, all they see is the results, and they're like, oh yeah, this works great. Like, oh, but it's going to give you cancer. Yeah. So
he took the serum, turned him into pale Sinister, and gave him his regeneration powers from torturing the circus freaks or what have you.
This show, man, I swear.
Yeah. But she's happy. Xavier's pissed because he's just a jerk, and he goes to go confront Sinister, aka Essex, which is when he gets the cool glasses. It's cool, John Lennon, black sunglasses, super pale, and he's just not having it. And this part feels like Dracula to me, like the Bram Stoker's Dracula.
It feels like Dracula. There has never been another character on the show that looks so much like a dude I created in Bloodborne as Mr. Sinister does in this scene with the little glass. Those are exactly the glasses from the character creator, man. You know what I'm saying? This dude looks like a Bloodborne character.
Looks like a Bloodborne character. Sounds like a Bloodborne character. This is by far the most Bloodborne of the episodes of this cartoon.
Absolutely, I love it.
Yeah. So it's pretty much them having this philosophical, they're arguing, hey, you can't play God. He's like, well, I can play God. I got results, etc. Don't be so stuffy. Let me show you what I have. And he shows him into his torture room.
Why would you do this? Why would you show him show him some cats that you saved? Don't show them your human slavery ring.
Show him the prison where you have people on the floor eating out of bowls like dogs. And
what
also,
are you doing?
Why do you keep them on the floor eating out of bowls like dogs? And he just expects Xavier to be like, well, it's okay.
Yeah, this is dope. Yeah, this is fine.
Yeah. I don't really get it. I don't understand what Mr. Sinister's game plan was here.
Me either. It just seems like, why would you show anybody this after the reaction you got the first time? I think that this was okay.
Xavier says his man is clearly malnourished, and he's also quivering in fear, let him go. Mm-hmm. And Sinister's like, nah. And then they fight.
And I like this fight a lot because it's rare on this show that we get a kind of, because it's a superhero show. So normally when there's a fight, it's a full on lasers blasting. Storm is talking about the weather real out loud, that kind of stuff. This is just a straight up fight, and
just two regular men.
Yeah, and the mutant powers come into it because when they drop the keys, that Magneto guy, that Magneto wannabe, can zap them over to the other person so that they can, free all of these people that are being incarcerated. And I like that a lot. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, the fighting the 1800 X-Men. And also I like Action Xavier.
Sure, yeah.
It's kind of silly, but the idea that his grandfather, they're playing this whole thing for irony, having him be a pious man who was kind of a tough guy versus current Xavier who, gymnastic flips aside, is a man of science and is more of an intellectual hero.
And don't forget, active terrorist.
Oh yeah. An intellectual terrorist.
Intellectual terrorist
is what I would call him. So Essex is very upset that all of his experimentation subjects escaped. They escaped. They end up causing this fire, shooting fire out of their hands and setting a building on fire, which causes the Bobbies to show up. And pretty much rains on the parade here. Essex is oh no, all my work, everything is gone. The mutants are fighting back against the humans, doing cool power shit. I am way here for this.
Oh yeah, this is great.
1800s, Charles Dickens style X-Men that happens.
And for whatever reason,
cool.
I don't know if it's just because everything is a little exaggerated in this in this time frame, but it none of the animation problems that we've been talking about up to for the last few episodes really they're here, but for some reason they don't bother me as much. And I think it's just because the setting is so different and they are somewhat consistent with the characters that they're doing, so it doesn't necessarily bother me as much as it has. It works for me in a real way.
Yeah, I like this a lot. And then so as the cops are trying to round up the mutants who are escaping, one of them runs into a church because he is a pious man like Xavier. Xavier follows him, and he's scared. He prays, and Xavier, the mob is going to kill him because he's a freak. And Xavier, turning into Xavier for the first time, or turning into his great grandson or what have you, decides to protect him from the mob, which is a very Charles Xavier thing to do. Here. And something that I fucking love. Guess what? Mr. Sinister does. That's right. His classic move from the Phalanx Covenant: run down an alley.
I'm gonna get down this alley, and I'm not looking back. That's his theme song. I'm gonna get down this alley, and I'm not looking back.
Yep. He runs away after everybody tries to. So they chase him. He goes to his wife. Here, she doesn't. She rejects him at this point, which is pretty heartbreaking. He's like, "Hey, we got to get out of here," and she's like, "No." Like you're a monster and a freak, and they're coming at you with pitchforks. I've read, Frankenstein. I know you're the bad guy here. So he escapes there.
Yeah, he jets. He gets on a horse and leaves. We get kind of a cool like epilogue sequence where we just find out what happened to everybody, which I think is really good. I love
this. Like all the different like weirdo X-Men are all in different parts of the country, or different parts of the world. Sinister has a full-on Dracula castle now where Jack the Ripper delivers him a package.
So fucking his friend Jack, awesome. I've never wanted to be a villain, but wow, do I want to be this villain? That's
what a cool thing for this cartoon to do. That's why Jack the Ripper was doing his murders, was to get Mr. Sinister genetic material for his experiments. Like, did you, like, in a million years, did you expect that to happen in this cartoon?
Not at all.
Me.
Like,
I didn't.
If you had told me about it, I would have called you a liar. I'd been like, come on, you're fucking with me. Like, there's literally no way that Jack the Ripper is in this X-Men show.
And then, Xavier dedicating his life to hunting this guy is the other part that feels like Dracula. He's trying to find him. He goes to his place. He thinks he's going to find him. And instead, what happened? Sinister, super baller move, leaves his autographed copy of Origin of the Species.
Booyah. Gotcha, Xavier.
Love it. Then we get a framing sequence.
Yeah, so we find out that Rebecca never spoke again, which seems like a weird thing. Like, it seems like a real specific thing to say, but for really no outcome. But then, in the real world, in the current timeline, Xavier wakes up, like Professor Xavier wakes up, having like been reading this book that was left to him from his family, which I think is kind of cool. And
and he's just staring. It's really dramatic looking. Like the light is the shadows from the window frame are like falling on his face. Like he looks like he's dealing with some shit. Really cool. And it's just like, oh, that was the one that got away. Like my ancestor couldn't kill him, and now he's a big problem. The worst part of like talking about this, I've actually come around on this one. I think this might be the best episode of the season. I think this is a pretty good episode, and like the only bummer is where it's placed. Like this is the penultimate episode, so you never get closure on Mr. Sinister. Mr. Sinister, last seen running away from the Phalanx Covenant.
And the thing is, like, they build him up in this. Like, I would have liked to have seen this before we ever saw the Nasty Boys, right? Showing this and then having it just fade out and be like, well, that was weird. And then 2 episodes later, he shows up to kidnap Scott and Jean. Would have been so fucking cool. Like, just that placement.
Or I mean, even doing a little bit, if you could have had him show up and then do the origin, but then have him be a major antagonist. Like, this is a good origin though. Like, for him, like it is interesting. I think this is probably better told than the comics version of it. So well done. I ended up liking this. I mean, there's problems with it. Like it's really outlandish, but at this point, like I want outlandish.
Well, and it's
from the show. It's
outlandish, and it's outlandish in kind of a good way, though. Like it kind of works.
Yeah,
and it's like the problems that I have with it are just so minor compared to the Sam Guthrie episode or anything else that we've seen from this season so far.
Absolutely. I don't know if I told you this before. I probably did the first time Sinister showed up on the show, but did you know that Chris Claremont originally intended Mr. Sinister to be a little kid that had like shape-shifting powers, and the reason why he has that stupid name and costume was because it was a little kid's idea of a supervillain?
Oh no, I don't think we talked about that because I would have remembered that. That makes way more sense because Mr. Sinister is a real dumb name.
Yeah, it's an extremely dumb name, but it was supposed to be intentional.
It's right up there with Mr. Fantastic for dumb super names.
Yeah. Super on the nose. But yeah, that's the last like little villain origin we get. Does he show up in the last episode? No. The last episode, Graduation Day, which means we have a paragraph of recap or synopsis for once. Due to a serious injury, Professor Xavier is dying and must leave with Lalandra to go with her to the Shi'ar Empire. He bids farewell to his X-Men. The last scene of the show ends with all the X-Men standing outside the mansion watching Lalandra's ship carrying Xavier flying away. I think that referencing that it's a show in the last synopsis is a little bit off to me. Also, that's the end of the episode. A lot of things happen before that.
It's the very end of the episode. And like, you could say that this episode is about a lot of things, and it's definitely about Xavier dying, but it's about so much more than that. Like we finally get a little bit of global action with this mutant versus human thing, and it's really good. Like I kind of dig this episode.
Other than like a plot contrivance at the end that I think is super stupid, this could have been like a really, really good episode. Instead, it turns out to be a good episode, as opposed to like a GOAT episode,
Mm-hmm.
And we'll get to it because there's a lot to talk about in this one.
There's a lot, starting with our old buddy Gyrick. Why do we keep giving this dude a place to talk? Nobody likes him, least of all the mutants. Like, this is ridiculous. But he's basically there to shout at everybody that mutants are bad and that they need to pass the is it the mutant containment bill? I think is what it's called.
Yeah, he's at the UN or something like that, and he wants to do the thing. He wants to enslave or register mutants. The historical thing. But he's bringing up good points, right? Like he actually talks about. He's showing scenes from earlier in the series of mutants doing terrible things. He talks about the incident in Ireland, which like is referring to Proteus or Scotland rather. Like he's actually bringing up. Citing his sources. He's doing his
talks about the nuclear weapons on asteroid M and all that stuff.
Yes.
So he's actually like had some points, but he's so over the top and dramatic about them that you can't help but think that he's a crazy person.
And guess who slides into his DMs? Xavier just comes up from stage left on his floating mechanical wheelchair. Like this guy is addressing the UN. What is Xavier doing here, and why does he get to do this?
Why does Xavier get to have his floating wheelchair in front of everybody and the cameras, and not have to tell everybody where he got a floating wheelchair at? Like, can you
imagine? Being in a real wheelchair and seeing this on TV.
Who the fuck is this guy?
Yeah, why does this guy get technology that doesn't exist yet? And also, why is he always defending mutants? And like for once, like a character is smart, and Gyrick like considers that.
Mm-hmm.
He's just like, maybe this guy is not, not on the up and up.
I do like the little as Xavier is talking though right before Gyrick accuses him, we get like some scenes to some other people watching the TV, and there's that one scene of the Morlocks, and they've got like that old style cabinet TV that my great grandmother used to have, and they didn't even set it.
That, but
it's not even set flat on the floor. It's just like at an angle on top of some trash. I'm like, you could just move it to make it look like a normal fucking TV. Just do it. It's a cabinet.
It's like how a Fallout where like things are bad, but nobody ever changes it. Like everyone just like lives like, oh, there's a skeleton in the living room, but I'm not going to do anything about it. So it's just like they just turned on the TV where they found it. It was just garbage. They didn't bring a TV down here. Very funny. And this little thing of showing mutants from around the world is really great. We get this, like, I don't know what team this is supposed to be.
This is amazing. I love this.
So it's got Sunfire.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's got Feral. Okay. And then Tusk. Okay. And then the rest. Like, do you know who the rest of these guys are?
Not at all. I posted a picture of this in the Slack, by the way, to see if anybody would. And somebody posted it was Evolad, Darkseid, Morphlight, and Tusk, of course. So, like, you can figure out who that is. I like Morphlight a whole lot. Darkseid with a little Santa cap on is really good. That looks like the leader in the background, right?
Yeah, it's got the same head condition as the leader, but the leader has hair, which is one of the weirdest things about the leader. But God. And facial hair.
How would you like to be the leader's barber? And like just having to deal with that enormous fucking melon coming in.
Yeah, you put the close sign in the window and just
just leave.
Put on a pot of coffee. So Gyrick is just saying like, hey, this is bullshit. You're saying there's other sides to it. We haven't really seen it. And what about you? What about you? And it cuts to the X-Men. The X-Men are like, we've been battling. It kind of implies that this has been going on for a while. Like this is like debate 6 in the mutant containment series or whatever. Xavier's getting exhausted. Garrick says, hey, if you like mutants so much, why aren't you a mutant? Which, like, better late than never, right? Like, I feel like somebody should have made this idea, like maybe guessed this before. But he pulls out like a tech thing and zaps Xavier.
Yeah.
There.
And now the X-Men finally get up to do something. And whatever this thing that he's zapping him with, like, triggers
his Roku remote.
He zaps him with the Roku remote. Siri, blast Charles Xavier.
Would you like me to Google last Xavier?
God damn it, Siri! You never work when I want you to work. But it triggers Xavier's telepathy, and like everybody starts getting kind of fucked up about it until he just dumps himself out of his floating chair and kind of knocks himself out. And
yeah.
This is kind
Shades
of
of Logan, man.
Oh, this is hella Logan, man. I was really into this when it was happening. Beast picks up the Roku remote and is like, "Oh, this was configured for Professor Xavier's brainwaves." And like, how do you know that? Like, you just looked at this thing; it's a broken piece of shit on the ground. How do you know that? You're just lying, you goddamn liar, Beast.
No one will be able to check this except for me.
Yeah, nobody will even care because everyone's worried about their professor being dead.
Yeah. It is perhaps it is good that but can we talk real quick just about well, before that, can we talk about Cyclops' weird bowling shirt?
Sure, yeah, let's get into it.
This is a new costume for him, a new casual Cyclops, and like he's wearing this like blue shirt with different colored sleeves and collar. It looks like he's going to go bowling after this. I mean, that's really all there is to it. It's just very funny though.
What do you want to bet that on the back is just a pair of his red sunglasses, like embroidered on? Like this is his team shirt? You know what I'm saying?
It'd be amazing. It would be, and I don't trust Cyclops to have a clever like pun name for his bowling team. It'd probably just be like Scott Slammers,
the good bowlers.
Yeah.
Our daddies definitely didn't leave us at the bowling rink.
Why did you call it Scott Slammers, not Scott Strikers? God damn it! Slamming isn't a thing that happens in bowling.
It is when I do it,
Dad. Yeah. Wolverine picks up Xavier, gives him a courtesy sniff, and says like, "Hey, he's dead."
Yeah,
and then we
fade to black.
Commercial.
Yeah.
But he's not dead.
No, of course not. So they just have him set up on some sort of table in the Blackbird, and they've got a bunch of tubes hooked to him. I kind of like this as far as like creating a sense of urgency. Like Cyclops is yelling at everybody, like, open up the infirmary, get a video feed to Taggart. We're gonna be there in 5 minutes. Gambit, you fly, step on it. Like he's kind of yelling at everything. It's actually kind of cool. Like it's great characterization. Yeah, this feels
he's
good.
Being a dick because he's really, really hurt. Yeah, he's scared and he's being a real asshole.
Also, it's just good to see Cyclops again. I've been missing this dude.
He's been gone for a while. He was bowling. Like, there's a whole. He came right from the alley. Like while everyone was on vacation. Wolverine decided to go to France. As you do. Xavier caught up on his reading. Jubilee and Beast went to the Aztecs, and Scott decided to work on his game. He's up to 80. He can bowl an 80.
Yeah, so, and he thinks that's good.
when he calls to set up the infirmary, he calls Jubilee, which again, just being the final little bit of like Jubilee being the linchpin of this team somehow.
Absolutely,
and
man.
Operating the mansion on her own all the time as a 14-year-old girl.
She's the powerhouse of this series. Like now that we're at the end of it, I think we can officially say like the series has been about her and her journey, and it's been fascinating to watch, man. I'm really glad. I'm really glad we got a chance to experience this.
Let me run something by you here real quick because it's something you might be able to miss. So he's doing that. We're going to move into the main thrust of the episode. The coolest part of it is how the world community reacts to, again within the metaphor, like Martin Luther King getting shot, right? Like I'm not trying to say that to minimize MLK, but like in the metaphor, there's always been that, there's been the MLK Malcolm X thing between kind of peaceful resistance and militant resistance. And the spokesperson for peaceful resistance gets shot by a bigot. Like that's going to be a powder keg. We switch over to mutants dealing with this. Speaking of specifically Sunspot, where are they at? have you seen this scene of this weird mushroom island from a video game?
You mean
that they live on?
You mean Penis Cabin Island? Where the fuck are they? All of their huts are made out of penises. It's so weird.
This is incredible. Like this looks like it's from the Neverhood or something. It is a bunch of mushroom and penis shaped houses stacked together in a way that is like very video game. Like, and then they pan over. It's not like they're not primitive. They have a TV that's on a wall mount in a cave where Sunfire is talking to his assorted people. Unfortunately, Tiny Tusk is not there.
Yeah, no appearance of Tiny Tusk fans. If you were looking for it.
There's another cameo too, is that like, he talks to Feral and he's just like, hey, we have to commit war. They killed our peace person. In the background, there's a woman who kind of looks like Mrs. Sinister, but wearing an apron.
Mm-hmm.
There's a guy who is explicitly He-Man. It's Prince Adam.
It is absolutely He-Man. Yes.
And then there's the tiny Morlock from Christmas.
Yeah, this is the anime girl from the Morlock, very more like Little Christmas. Like, what is she doing with these people? Why do they have this anime girl?
What team is this? Like, what are these members?
Why are they assembled together? What brought them together?
What you'd want to do here is have, like, if you didn't want to have an existing team, like, you'd want to have like the Mutant Liberation Front or something like that. And Feral is kind of associated with those guys, but everybody else is just like, and Sunfire is a straight up superhero. Like, this is very weird. Like, Sunfire, Feral, and miscellaneous.
So, okay,
representation.
I'm having a hard time here, and I just want to try to avoid some tweets or some emails in the future. Is this Sunfire or Sunspot? Because I get the two of them confused. This is Sunfire,
This is
right?
Sunfire.
Because Sunspot
you might have said
turns
Sunspot
like
before, but
yeah.
I
definitely have Sunspot written all in the notes, so if that happens again, that's on me. Yeah. Everybody, tweet at me.
Sunfire is a Japanese. Sunfire is a Japanese superhero who has fire powers and can fly. Sunspot is a new mutant who gets full of like crackling black energy, is what they say, and he gets super strong. Yeah,
they actually do his powers pretty good in the Gifted, by the way.
Really? Mm-hmm. I'm kind of surprised because I always thought that was an awesome visual, but I was
they don't go full on like
cool.
He doesn't like turn into that dude or anything. Like it's much more reserved and it's better for it. So
that's cool. The so this weird video game island they live on, Magneto walks over to it and sees that they're there, like, and he's just like, these people are ready to follow me. And I love the idea that this happened and it is the perfect excuse for Magneto to go back on his bullshit. Absolutely.
Like he's coming down the mountain from the Arctic, right? Like
he crosses the ocean.
Also, wait, hold on. I was kind of clipping through this episode. That dude that always gets beat up for like being the fashion guy or whatever, he's in there too. He's hanging out.
Fur boy.
Yeah, I'll be damned.
It's really miscellaneous. It's like everybody who's not on a team, everybody who got picked last. So like this actually makes, I don't credit the people who made this show with doing this intentionally, right? But like this makes a lot of sense for where Magneto's at in his arc. Like he made his big bid he tried his version of Xavier's dream, right? Which was to like segregation.
Mm-hmm.
Like they won't let me live peacefully. I'm going to go to my own island. Like I'm going to go to space. Like I don't think Xavier's right, but I respect this man and his dream enough to try something that is compatible with his ways. The Earth wouldn't let him do that. He goes through an existential crisis for a little while, like lives in his fortress of solitude. Somebody offers him his wife back. Like he kind of spends some time working on Magneto. He grows that big beard, has his thing, and then the perfect opportunity comes along for him to slip into something comfortable. This is him saying, you know what? Like Xavier, I love Xavier. He was wrong. I was right. This proves it. This is what I'm good at. I'm going to actually put on the helmet, throw this sword into the ocean and actually become a real ass fucking supervillain again. And it's awesome.
Absolutely.
It is a really this is a great character beat for Magneto. Even though it feels like a regression, it actually is like, it feels like something you would do if you were lost or you had no idea what else to do.
Well, and the thing that's changed
super
now
good.
is that he's not trying to convince everybody that this is true. Everybody wants him to lead. Like literally they are begging him to, like, I think at some point he comes out and they just start shouting, "Lead us," to him. And that has to feel pretty fucking good to Magneto, who has probably had, who has had a history of leading bad teams that didn't necessarily want it to be led. So this feels
now he gets
really
to
good.
lead Tusk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now he has Tusk on his team.
Yeah, with bonus Tusk. So we go back to the mansion, and everyone's standing around the kitchen having this crisis. Storm's back after an absence of about like 10 episodes. And they're just like, man, this is really rough. Everyone's real mad. Everyone's kind of getting up each other's noses because everyone's, upset. Really good, good work here. And they're talking to Moira McTaggart, and she's like, he's too far gone. Like, Earth science cannot fix this. And Beast is like, well, what if outer space science? What if Shi'ar technology could do it? Can we get in touch with them? Jean, can you do it? Jean says, I can't do it.
Yeah, they've had apparently Xavier and Alondra have this special connection that allowed them to communicate with each other across light years of space, and Jean can't front on that. She has no idea.
Yeah,
I do want to point out, by the way, that Moira McTaggart has set up a video feed in front of her building so that you can see the sign that says Muir Island directly behind her shoulder, which is a weird, like, why are you branding, dog? We know where you are. We called you.
Well, and I had to go outside to make this phone call.
I have to go outside to make this video phone call. I got to go FaceTime in the yard. Everybody.
Oh, it's an emergency. Let me go set up a yard camera. Yeah.
Her and Banshee were just out here filming like some outdoor sex activities, right?
Yeah. Yep. And she's naked from the waist down. She just put on her collar. That's very funny. I didn't notice. I wish I noticed. That's very funny that she's doing this from outside.
It's just in the worst place possible. Anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, they
release a video showing that he's okay.
Yeah.
But it turns out it's fake.
Well, I like this leading up to this. Like, we get this whole news thing of that mutants are rioting like across the globe, right? Like this is like people are writing like, "Where's Magneto?" and graffiti on the walls. Everyone is kind of like looking for a leader. The newscaster goes far to say it's like everyone thinks this is okay until they get organized and find a leader. And it's just And then of course they have a statement from Professor Xavier who says like, "Don't do this. Everybody calm down. If you're doing this on behalf of me, you're doing it for the wrong reasons. I would never ask you to ask you to commit violence in my name," that kind of thing. Which is got to be very reassuring to, everybody in the United States who's probably freaking the fuck out right now.
Yeah. And not the people who are spray painting Viva Magneto on walls and stuff. But this is again, like, kind of sophisticated storytelling. Like, this is fake. Xavier's not okay. They just called up their buddy Morph and said, "Hey, can you pretend to be Xavier and like help us do damage control?"
Gary, I want to clue you in. The moment that they pan the camera over and then we see Xavier in the chair and then he turns into Morph, Wolverine walks over and just has the warmest smile that this animation has ever produced. He is so happy to see his boy Morph. He's so excited that Morph is is he back on the team?
Well, Wolverine did this in order to lure Morph back into the fold.
That's how that Roku remote was tuned to Xavier's telepathic signal.
Yeah. So Morph also on the way to do another wipe, because this is the season of bad wipes. We do a Magneto wipe where Morph turns into Magneto. And remember in the early seasons when Morph turned into something and it would actually like his skin would change and stuff? Oh yeah. Now he just fades out and fades back in as the correct person.
We don't want to animate this, right? Like we don't have to do this.
Yeah. Very good.
Oh, it's so bad. It's so bad.
We switch over to Magneto on Weird Mushroom Island, talking to all his people who live in huts around campfire.
What is this? I don't understand what this is supposed to be. Like, I
didn't notice it the first time I watched it, and now I'm just like rewatching it. Just like, what are you guys doing in Mushroom Island?
I noticed it too because like everybody is like they're like at a campfire. Like everyone's like hanging out. Like some people don't even have tents. They're just laying on the ground sleeping. They're not even indoors. It's the weirdest fucking thing.
Tusk shows back up again in case anybody wondered.
Sure. Yeah.
Tusk is back, Toad's there, we're getting everybody, and Magneto gives a speech about, pretty boilerplate Magneto stuff, but finally people are ready to hear it. Everybody's on board with this. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, and his speech is fine. Like his speech is totally okay. It's exactly what I would expect for Magneto to say at this point. Like it's really well written. Like all of this stuff is good. I really like helmetless Magneto with that huge white mane is really good. That's fun stuff.
And this crowd scene, you get the guy who is dressed up as a scarecrow.
Oh yes,
his mutant power is his goofy face and is a bag of leaves.
What
is his superpower?
Not since that one mutant in the new X-Men who's just air, like in a containment, like a balloon or whatever. Yeah. Have we seen like a bad mutant? Like this is ridiculous.
I love that drawing. It makes me think that the person who drew this had no understanding of what a mutant was. Like he's just like, hey, just draw a bunch of creative monsters, go nuts with it.
Yeah, and he just get crazy with. You've seen Star Trek, huh? Just do Star Trek stuff. Yeah.
No, this isn't Star Trek, Jeremy. Like if you use Star Trek, there are a lot of Star Trek monsters on there, but this one is a bag of leaves. Like it is even crazier than that. Like,
well, you've seen Halloween episodes of Star Trek, right?
Yeah. It's in the one where they celebrate the obscure Earth holiday known as Halloween. Oh my gosh.
Holodeck would produce a bunch of leaves so that I could rake them into the scarecrow bag and give it conscience and make it feel pain. There's a line here coming up. So after Magneto's big speech, we go back to the mansion, and Xavier's on his deathbed. He's got hours to live. The machines are keeping him alive. Cyclops turns to Wolverine and says that Jean has used Cerebro to do a psychic recon, quote, of the whole situation. I don't. A psychic recon of the whole situation. Okay, cool.
Oh, okay.
Interesting.
Thank God. Well, it's just like that's the beginning of the end of this episode. Like, there's still good stuff that happens, but that's where the one sticking point starts.
Mm-hmm.
Is them no longer having the kind of skill to write their way out of this in a believable way. So they have Jean just literally find the solution by scanning for solutions of they should have just did a psychic recon of the episode. And that would have been like equally believable.
Yeah, Jean has predicted the future, and we have determined that our animators are extremely poor and time sensitive, so we are not going to do a lot of fighting with this one. I don't get what this is though, because Cyclops calls Wolverine in, and it's almost set up to be like a special Black Ops thing. Like, I need you. It's going to be me and you, and we've got to get to Magneto. And I was like, okay. This is the X-Men like betraying Xavier's dream on his deathbed in order to save the world, right? Like this is they're gonna achieve his dream, but at what cost? By betraying at the same time. But no, they're not. They're literally just trying to sneak in to quote unquote talk to him, and I'm like, what are you doing? Because they treat it like a suicide mission.
Yeah, well, this is the show being shitty, but like I think the idea here is that Cyclops is selling it to Wolverine as such. But Cyclops, since Jean Grey scanned the situation, Jean Grey had this idea before, like on how they're going to actually fix this, right?
Okay.
So that's why they say, we can't kill him. It's not a suicide mission. So it weaves towards the way you're thinking, which is way more thematically rich and cool, even though it is darker. And instead zags towards something stupider. Like significantly stupider, which we're going to get to. But they didn't want to tell Wolverine because Wolverine may not be down with it. Like, he doesn't like that, he doesn't want to consort with villains. Like, he is much more of an absolutist in that stuff.
Which, I mean, at a certain point, like, Wolverine, either we need to join with Magneto to make sure his uprising isn't as violent as it could be, or we need to kill Magneto to make sure that his uprising isn't as violent as it could be.
And it's not like you haven't worked with Magneto before. It is a weird thing for him to draw a line now all of a sudden.
But Jean insists she's going to come on this trip, and of course, Cyclops and Wolverine are like, no, and she's like, yes, and then they just go. Because we don't have a lot of time left in this episode, and we're trying to get to the end.
Yeah, we like yes, no, yes, okay. When they arrive, Magneto just blows up their plane, which is not very Magneto-like, right? Like to just summarily execute a bunch of X-Men.
Yeah,
It doesn't seem like something he would do.
I like this though because it's like, okay, I'm not fucking around anymore. Like before, I would like
Yeah.
engage these people on their own terms, and we would have a fight and maybe a philosophical battle at the end, and I would try to like dump a bunch of chemicals. But now I don't have time for this. Like I'm standing on this outcropping of weird melted rock, and I'm going to blow up this plane. Like it's just done.
Well, they've stopped him every other time before too, so he knows this is his best chance. Which is pretty cool. Like again, I like the characterization of Magneto a lot in here. Blows up their plane. Luckily, they jump out first, and Jean Grey uses her force field to like land them, so they can kind of walk up to Mushroom Land. Note here: are there no houses in Genosha?
I mean, like if you look, like they sneak in, and we're going to talk about this a little bit, but like number one, like Jean is very bad at this force field thing, like not great at landing at all. But they sneak in just by walking in, and nobody recognizes them. They're the fucking X-Men. Like, did you not see that picture that was going around for the last 4 episodes? Yeah. This is all of them.
You should have mailed a copy, like a Polaroid of that. Mm-hmm. They walk past all the mutants who are just sleeping on the ground outside of houses. Many of them sleeping sitting up, and it's like they're not being quiet or anything either. I don't know, what's going on, except for Feral and Sunfire, who are hanging out doing something, and then wake everybody up.
Before we jump into that, they
recognize them.
The first dude that they walk by, and if you can, kind of maybe rewind it a little bit. Is what?
Forearm? Is his
Forearm?
name, I think?
Not the first dude. The dude laying down that has fins for feet, and it looks like an ape. The guy in the swimming gorilla suit guy? Yeah. What?
Notice swimming gorilla suit guy.
What is this dude's power, and why is he not in the water with fins for feet?
He's got a real body type like me. Like if I were at this place, and it was just a naked mutant, like that's about what I look like laying down on the ground.
You wear a lot of bandoliers too, like just a little chest strap.
Yeah. And I wear a gorilla suit and just have the big Abe Lincoln beard, and
of course, yeah.
And then, I didn't notice that guy, and he brought a sheet. He's laying down like it's a picnic. Everyone else has to lay down on the ground, but he's there for 4th of July. Like he's got a blanket to lay on.
Presumably, all of the huts are filled up, right? That's why they're out here.
No, they're not. Like you can see them and they're empty. Like I don't understand why nobody's indoors.
I don't either.
It's extremely weird. So this is where we get our fight, between the 3 most principal X-Men, arguably, and then you think we're going to fight between them and like 1,000 mutants, and It's like pretty cool. We see Reaper, we see some, Toad, we see some more cameos. I'm glad they're actually doing that in addition with their weird He-Man villains. They keep showing up. Mm-hmm. And Feral points out, he's like, hey, no Magneto's here. He's gonna tell us what to do. And the X-Men sneak away while everyone is staring at Magneto.
Yeah. And I love the X-Men's justification. Like Cyclops is just literally like, there's got to be a secret door. There's always a secret door. Oh, found it. They just find it immediately.
Everything is happening very quickly now that we are near the end, because it's like they realized that they had to cap up this entire series in 18 minutes or whatever. But this is actually kind of cool here if it wasn't so dumb, where like they're going to interrupt Magneto's speech. They're going to stop him. They do this fight. Magneto is just like, you're not going to stop me this time. Fight. He throws some slime furniture at them. It's a pretty good fight.
Did something happen to Genosha off screen that everything's melted? Is that what's happening here? Like,
is
did
this
a
Genosha?
nuclear? Yeah, because that's where Cyclops tells Wolverine, he's like, mutants are streaming to Genosha, and that's what, and you know what that means. Like, we have to go over there and talk to Magneto. So it makes me think that, like,
I don't think this is. Yeah. We've been to Genosha several times on the show. Remember, Genosha is a place where if you're a mutant, you get a 10% discount on hotels,
hotel rooms.
And
now
it is a cut level from Super Mario Land. Like now it is no longer like a real place at all.
I hate to play to the stereotype, but it looks like a abandoned level in Bloodborne, right? With all the melted candle wax everywhere. Like that's what it looks like.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Man.
But they fight, and the reason that they get out of this is they say like, hey, Xavier is actually dying. He's like, what are you talking about? I saw him on the news. He's like, no, that was Morph. He's actually dying. He's on his deathbed.
You Claude. Who do you hang out with? Is it Mystique? Because you should know that's not.
Everybody, you shouldn't believe anything. I don't know why anybody believes anybody's anybody.
In fact, where is Mystique right now? It could have been her, you dipshit. So he says that, and he says like, I'll let you leave, but let you live, but you have to leave, and somewhere in this fight, Magneto zapped Jean Grey, which caused her powers to get better or stronger. It's like a blink and you miss it kind of thing. And Jean says, hey, actually, how much do you love Charles Xavier? Which is like a great like line, I think. Like, I think that's a really good thing, because that's important to understanding Magneto, right? Like, he loves that man. Like, they are best buds. He has so much respect for him. He says, you can use your magnetic powers to boost my brain waves to get in touch with Alondra, because brain waves are just electromagnetic energy and nothing like this from here on out, like up until the actual end. Like, this is so dumb. Like, bringing Magneto and Xavier's surrogate children together to save Xavier and live on the dream is perfect. I wish they had found a way that wasn't so like bad science-y.
Me too, because I love this dilemma that they put Magneto in of like, here is my chance. My legions are waiting. It's what he says. I am primed to take over this. This is the moment to do it, but I can't let my friend die. And I think even Cyclops, either Cyclops or Wolverine says like, would he would he would do the same for you. That he would do this exact same thing for you. It's really great. Like this kind of pathos does not happen in this show. We don't usually get to talk about cool stuff like this on this show. Normally it's just Gambit's dick. We haven't seen Gambit's dick once.
Yeah. He solemnly and respectfully only rubs it through the front of his pants since Xavier is dying.
I mean, I'm not going to stop touching this, Sherry.
Yeah, he's like, I need to come, but I won't do it in front of you if you don't want for Xavier. It's like really, and it's the line is here. I had to look it up. I looked up the script here that Wolverine has. It's so good. He says, Magneto, as he's walking away, he's trying to justify it to himself. He says, after what they did to Xavier, why do you fight me? And Wolverine says, because he'd want us to. It's like so good.
That's
it's
a good
so
line.
Good. It's like very, very like, this is encapsulating the themes in a way that just makes me wish that they didn't say that brainwaves were electromagnetic and Magneto could zap, increase her powers and zap them through the universe. Like, there's just a lot of different, I feel like there could have been a different way to do this. This is very, very cool thematically and not very cool mechanically.
Yeah, this is kind of dumb. Like, even if just getting like, hey, don't you want to talk to your best friend before he dies would have been like, don't you want to be there? Not even like you can save him or whatever, or but just don't you want to see him?
He's got to give something up in order to, to give up his dream, right? Like, he wouldn't give up his dream to say goodbye. He'll give up his dream to save his friend's life. But like, what if there had just been a MacGuffin, right? Like, what if there was a Shi'ar device that they had that was like, this allows us to communicate, however, only I can activate it, and it can be activated by magnets or something. If it wasn't literally just when Magneto uses his powers on Xavier gets Megathot. Because Magneto has used his powers on Xavier before, and he never got Megathot before.
And he never got Megathot.
But now,
Megathot is just like, I'm picturing it spelled THOT, and I'm having a great time over here. I just want you to know that. The Megathot.
Xavier get Megathot all the time now. Now Ruko give Xavier Megathot, Magneto give Xavier Megathot, everything get Megathot. Like, it is just, everything can boost his powers, and it's so silly. It works. Everyone is crying. Everyone's tearful. Like, it's kind of a great scene. He wakes up. He kind of makes a joke. It's still a really, really good scene.
I want to talk about this.
That's a good note, Jeremy.
He does. I mean, like, Magneto, like, touches hands to Xavier's head, and, like, a telepathic wad shoots out into space. Like, it's like he ejaculated telepathic energy to his girlfriend in space, right? Like, that's what this is.
It is a TK wad.
It's a TK
the skill you get if you grind everyone up to level 99 Earthbound. TK Wad. So everybody kind of says, and the idea here, it's revealed that Xavier, can't live here. They're going to have to bring me back, and I won't be able to come back. Like, I can survive under Shi'ar care. So everyone's saying their goodbye.
Well, not even this, because
and it's like,
because he doesn't, like, Shi'ar doesn't like show up, like Landra doesn't show up for a little bit. He just wakes up and then starts telling everybody goodbye, like he's going to die.
Yeah, they still think he's going to die.
Yeah. So which is extra, a little bit. Which is extra sad, because, like, I mean, he starts with Morph and then kind of works his way through the hierarchy, ending with Cyclops. But every single he addresses every single person, which I think is kind of strong for the show to do. Like, they spend several minutes going through and saying, like, Storm, you're mighty as a hurricane and gentle as a summer rain. Okay, that's not a good example, but the rest of them are actually pretty good.
Well, it is speaking her language, right? Like if you're going to communicate with Storm, that's how she likes to, she likes to talk.
I can only communicate in weather-based metaphors.
It's a language she'll understand. The and just like everyone takes off their masks and stuff. This is like it's a great scene. Everybody's very upset. You're really, really good. And just imagine like being a kid. I didn't see this as a kid, but if I had, this would have wrecked me because it's like you spend all this time with these characters, and you love them so much. And
as a kid, I really liked Professor Xavier. I didn't realize he was such a fucking creep until I was, older.
Yeah. Yeah. You hadn't seen him space jizz quite as much. So like, but it's very sweet. I just noticing I'm watching it on mute, and what it looks like is when he's going through all the X-Men saying his little tight five on them, he's talking to Jean Grey, and it looks like Beast like literally like, but what about me? Like walks up and gets attention, like puts his hand on him and says like, now do me, Professor. What's good about me, Hank McCoy? Like it's very funny.
And Xavier does him proud because he had a whole poem memorized just for Hank. Like he does a whole fucking poem.
He does do a poem. He's been faking this whole thing. He's trying to get away from the X-Men, and this whole thing has been fake.
Oh, absolutely.
He had all this stuff memorized, and in his head he was just like trying to figure out, how do I get away from these car guzzling motherfuckers who don't remember that they have powers and won't stop doing terrorism? How do I get away? And this is how. Because he could control Gyrick and give him a Roku. If Gyrick has the remote control that's tuned to his brainwaves, where do you think he got those brainwaves from? Xavier.
Definitely Xavier. Yeah. And also Xavier could like literally stop everybody with a thought. Like this is ridiculous that this is happening at all. But yeah, so Lalandra shows up and is like, yeah, your puny human medicine sucks, but here's like a brain thing, and that's going to make him better. But our brain thing doesn't work on Earth, so we got to go. Bye. Yep. Seems fake, actually. Like this seems.
Yeah, it is. The thing is that Xavier has been having sex pretty infrequently, and now he hasn't lived with his Imzadi or whatever. Like now he gets to go live with his Imzadi, so good for him. But for real, it is very, very sweet. And what a good, so they leave, everyone's out on the lawn and kind of waves goodbye. And that's the end of the series. And like, it really suggests if the show hadn't been floundering and falling apart and dying of animation, this suggests a really good setup for the show. Like, what are the X-Men without Xavier's leadership? Like, what are they if they're alone in the world? That's a really cool turning point.
Well, and like
the series, I think.
The way that the world has changed as well, so that all of a sudden mutants are way more primed than ever to have a revolution, and like this is where you get into some fun stuff that the comics have done, which is like having a schism between the X-Men. Like maybe some people actually want to believe in Magneto's goal. Like Xavier's stuff didn't work, and he had to leave the fucking planet. So we have to go a different way. Like, why would you ever believe that Xavier's stuff is going to continue to work when he went to space and took all of his cars with him? So now we don't even get paid in cars anymore. And
it doesn't.
Yeah.
It's really good. I think it's a really good kind of ending. For this series, and the idea not only are things worse, but they're more alone.
Mm-hmm.
So love it. Like it's actually a very good ending. I wish it wasn't so pseudoscience-y, or if they had just done the pseudoscience differently. This would have been a great two-parter. It just like, did we need 4 points for across time and 4 parts for across time and space? Or could you have let this story breathe a little bit? And I would have loved to have seen like the X-Men's allies fighting like mutant uprisings.
Absolutely.
Like
places bring back X-Factor.
Mutants start attacking things. Yeah. X-Factor and Colossus and everybody is, trying, Nightcrawler shows up. There would have been just a really good way to make this breathe. The Morlocks choose a side, right? Like, they owe Xavier a lot, but also at the same time, like they've been mistreated. Like, there's a lot of cool things you could have done here. They did more of it than I expect based on this season,
Absolutely.
So we can nitpick it forever, but it's actually has a really good core.
I'm really happy that this is the finale. Like this, again, accepting the weird electromagnet brainwave bullshit. This is a really solid X-Men episode. This hits everything that I like about the X-Men. It hits all of the kind of crisis that these characters have to go through. This kind of obsession with Charles Xavier, which I think is relatively unhealthy in the X-Men, and it shows that too a little bit. Like, and I would have loved to see the outcome of that. It's really a disappointment that they couldn't, though.
This is them, and the episode's called Graduation Day, right? Like, which I love. It's not like actually them graduating from the school, which would have been a fine way for them to do it. Instead of that, though, it's them graduating because they have to move on and forge their own kind of destiny. They the whole idea of them being kind of unhealthily dependent on Xavier makes a lot of sense because they've been here since they were kids. Like it is a school, like even for the adults, like Cyclops has been here since he's a kid. He's never had anything resembling a normal life. Every time he tries to go to the movies or get married, he gets fucked up, and it's very cool to throw these characters out on their own and make them deal with this, and I love that as a setup. It's like a very, very sweet, very, very sweet kind of construct. Thematically sound really, really satisfying.
We didn't get into the particular details of what Xavier was saying to every person, but it was extremely personalized. Like telling Wolverine that he was a cynic and he found his faith.
He pretty much told everyone the first time that they masturbated and told the whole group because he's a psychic. So he's
definitely a psychic. Like, he just shared that with everybody.
For you, Gene,
Peace out, folks.
You were riding a horse and it broke your hymen, but then you kept going for it, and then eventually it made you orgasm. And for you, Wolverine, it was when you were a sickly child in Canada. Oh yeah, you were a sickly child in Canada. I've known that for this entire time. I didn't want to tell you.
5 years.
And for you, Cyclops, it was 2 weeks ago, and like you just finally brought up the courage to ask Jean for permission. And when she said she didn't say anything this time, you took it as a yes.
Can't spell Cyclops
it's
without cuck.
Yeah, but it's actually this time it's actually sweet. And for you, Gambit, you're doing it right now. Wow, the cat's away.
the cats aren't away, Gambit. You're in the room.
You're in a room full of cats. Rogue walks up and goes, "You're in a room full of cats with rocking long-tailed cats and rocking chairs, sugar." Ah, yes.
Fucking Gambit.
Yeah.
I'm
it's
curious.
actually very sweet.
Yeah, it's a sweet ending. I'm going to be really curious to finish reading this book about it because I want to find out like just how off the rails this thing went. In the first couple of chapters alone, they're already blaming other people for stuff, which I find very hilarious. Like people who had worked on like the Spiderman thing or whatever, or the Pride of the X-Men. They're like, I don't remember the woman's name that was the cartoon producer at Fox at this point. With she wanted to work, but she just partnered with some bad people, and I'm like, where's their book? Like, did you not get a chance to talk to them? But I'm curious at how far this thing went off the rails and just how bad it got. So,
yeah, me too. And I wish, it's very like this happens a lot with games, but it's true with everything. Like when things kind of have disastrous ends, it's extremely rare that we actually get to see what happened. The stories almost never get told. Like. And if they do, it's way, way after. Like, we'll never know what happened with BioShock Infinite. Like, we'll never actually know the full story of that. Things like that. Like, it's pretty rare. And I would love to have a Frank account. And these guys, this is a well enough loved cultural institution that they're never gonna, like, the show is not a failure, right? Like, it's not Ishtar. Like, they're not gonna be like, oh, this was the huge fiasco. Let's tell the story of it. Because the show was complicated. Like, it had a lot of ups and a lot of downs. And they're focusing on the ups, which is great. I want to read that other person's book as well and find out more about the downs. But, the people who made this like very cool, good thing. Like, I don't mind them kind of luxuriating in the ups for a little bit.
Yeah. Especially because it seemed to have a little bit of a zeitgeist to it. Like the series seemed to come back in a little bit over the last few years. Probably because we started doing a podcast about it. I'm sure that was the
undoubtedly. It's the only factor. I'm sure.
But it's I think it's a lot of people hitting that age where they start looking back fondly on the stuff that they grew up with, and that nostalgia has been a thing for the last 10 years. But we're just now getting to the point where you're looking back and going like, oh yeah, like I could just go watch that and it's good and it's still goofy and it's fun. So I'm really happy with this. Like, I want to thank everybody that's been listening this entire time. And I want to especially thank the patrons at patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv because without them, we literally would not have had this podcast. This was a Patreon goal. You guys hit it. And it's been amazing. It's my first podcast on the Duckfeed network. I say first, like we have other stuff lined up. It was just being a part of this Duckfeed network is really good. I've got 6 more podcasts that are coming out. Oh yeah, absolutely.
We talked a big talk about not wanting to do DC, but that was a psych.
Yep.
Thanks everybody for supporting the show. It's been very fun. I love doing the show. It's been fun to We've had you on the network a bunch, but I've wanted to get you. One of the things that is, I think, a cool thing to be able to do as we are able to grow, like growth. We have to be careful about it because we only have so much time in the day. But it does mean that we've been able to bring on a lot of people onto the show, and that's been great, right? Like, so, we were able to bring you on for this show, and Cole started doing Radio Free Midworld, which was able to bring on Autumn and Evan and people onto the network who we think are, exceptional people who we want to have, who we want to work with, is the idea. And like having that freedom to do that is really great.
Yeah.
And this is, I was joking about it, like, and I keep joking about it, but like, Cole doesn't need to hear me talk about X-Men shit all the time. Like, it's just as is, he does, but it's really great to have, somebody who knows the difference between a phalanx and I don't know, the difference between Douglock and Warlock.
Yes. Yes.
So
Douglock is my ship.
Useful.
Of Locke from Lost and Doug from the cartoon series Doug. So if you want to get deep on some fan fiction, I'm ready.
They open the hatch and it's like ding 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 ding.
I'm not in the ship, or whatever the thing on his hand frame was. Anyway, thank you everybody for listening. If we sound like we're like ending this show, we're definitely not. Like, we have plans past.
Yeah, we're not. It's not graduation day for us. Yeah.
No, not at all. Not at all.
It's just,
we are forever in the X-Mansion. We are going to. The next thing we're going to cover is probably some. We're going to do a feedback episode. So if you want to write in your thoughts about the podcast or the show, or the last season, or anything X-Men related, now is the time to do it. We're going to be collecting those up until, I don't know the actual exact date, but it'll be 2 weeks after this. Like, we record that pretty quick before the thing. So when you're hearing this, if you're hearing this right now and you want to say something, go ahead and write that in now. daysoffuturecast.com/contact is the place to do that. After that, what are we going to be doing, Gary?
Well, we're going to do a movie. The end of the season, and the next movie that comes out chronologically, we haven't really talked about this, but the next one that makes sense to cover is probably First Class, right?
Is that the next one? Yeah, that's the next one. I'm into that.
That's the next one we haven't covered. Like, we jumped ahead a little bit with Logan, but other than that, that's the next one.
That was just because it was out and we were excited about it. So
yeah,
I actually wouldn't mind
we'll
because.
Class,
sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I'm looking forward to doing that because I've only seen it once and I liked it. So
I've seen it several times. That movie butchers one of my favorite characters, and I'm very upset about it. But otherwise, it's kind of a fun movie.
Which
watch,
character is that? Like, I think it butchers a couple characters.
It really does. Emma Frost, the White Queen.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
It does, and it's not like Havoc is not cool in it or anything. Like, there's lots of problems with the things, but it is fun to watch young Xavier and Magneto. That's
the draw of that movie, and it's going to be and Magneto's theme, right? Like, the music that they did for that is really good. So we're going to do a movie, and then we're going to start covering. We're going to go through all of the crossover episodes on the Spiderman animated series to talk about the X-Men's representation over there, and then we're going to do. Is it Avengers Next? Is that the title of it?
Nope. It's called Avengers United They Stand, I think is the name of that.
Avengers United They Stand.
1997 Avengers cartoon.
We're going to keep it in the 1990s Marvel family, but we're going to get away from the mutants after a while. Follow the Twitter for more details about that stuff, or if you're in the Slack, you can go to the channel Days of Future Cast for that. We've been recording a long time.
We've been recording all day. This is we just hit hour 6.
Yes.
So we decided to finish off the series because we're real close, and these seasons all make sense, to record together. And I'm glad we did it this way, so we didn't end up every single time we sat down to record didn't go, man, the fucking animation, which is what happened.
Exactly. So yeah, we've been recording a while. We're going to get out of here. If you want to talk to me on Twitter, I'm JG Greer. If you want to talk to Gary, he's at Gary Budd. Follow everything at Duckfeed.tv. And thank you for listening, everybody. We'll be back in 2 weeks.
Good night.